Well, your
Yeah.
balances might determine your interest rate though too. I mean, we've only, I think, two of those CDs that are rolling over are only about $67,000. I mean, so there's
Is that Cindy?
Yeah, I can have Mark get on it too.
Or Mark, yeah.
Mark, the supervisors at Fort Dodge is what they did with their money anyway.
Okay.
So they went with that, so in Webster County, so that's how we wound up with it for the landfill anyway, so.
Yeah.
Just something to mention anyway.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then we need a motion to approve the claims for June. Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under communications, and from public in attendance this evening? If not, we have Nick with us tonight with INS. Maybe we can go over some of the road construction projects then. We'll continue on that a little bit, see if we can.
Sure. Which ones would you like to go over?
Alrighty, back onto previously we had a work session here, we're talking about this year's projects for doing some road construction as far as milling, overlaying, or bituminous materials, I guess is what we call it, seal coating for the correct term. But some of the areas, maybe we could just run through quick and just kind of tell the areas that we are looking at doing, just so the people have an idea. We'll just kind of break it down into a section or something anyway, huh?
Good, okay. Let's see if I can pull up the map on this one. I guess I don't have that map on mine, but the sections we're looking at covering, section 6 would be.
Street south.
Section 6 would be 9th Street South. It'd be 11th Avenue South and 8th Street South, all next to the recycling center at the south tip of the town. Covering those all with seal coating, and there's, like we'd said earlier, there's no sidewalk in the area, so
Yep.
that cuts down on the cost quite a bit. So that portion, after all the consideration, is about $28,000 to address section 6. Section 13, and all of these came, like we'd said earlier in the work session, all of these came from the pavement condition index that we had completed approximately a year ago, using that rating system to figure out what the best bang for the buck is as far as rejuvenating the street. Section 13 was identified in the original roadway project, and Section 13 covers largely 10th Street north of 3rd Avenue North. And that section runs all the way through to Highway 3, and then a few of the side streets that are in a lower PCI index that would benefit from the seal coating. And so that section is approximately $70,000 once you throw out like traffic control and mobilization, because obviously we wouldn't have those if we're extending kilometers. So that's $70,000. Will cover both the blocks that are included in that list at the bottom of section 13. Section 14 is not part of the original plan. Section 14 is actually 2 blocks of 6th Avenue North. Which section of 6th Avenue North was
From 10th going west, or 10th going east.
10th going east.
Yep.
Okay.
8th
So
Street north.
Correct.
there's 2 blocks that we have not addressed on 6th Avenue North, which are alligatoring pretty bad along the edges. Actually, the center of the road's performing pretty well.
Yep.
I guess what's your thoughts on that?
Looking at it there, it's there's a couple areas that did adjust the PCI to where it was at. Addressing those areas by patching and then just the seal coating on top would be very good for these 2 blocks right here. We looked at a couple other blocks of 6th, and our recommendation is not that in those areas there. But these 2 blocks carry very well throughout that area. So just addressing it with some pretty minor patching overall. I mean, there's a significant amount for the length of the road, but it's still pretty minor overall. and then getting it sealed back up again would be the way to go on these 2 blocks. We do have some sidewalk to address, of course, in these areas, so that's included in here. Really at the current sidewalk prices for what we anticipate that we would need in those sidewalk areas. We haven't gone through full design there, so those numbers might change a little bit. They're not gonna vary very much. We kind of went pretty conservative of what we used for the sidewalk design in there to come up with the amount of quantity for sidewalk to utilize.
And, when we were looking, one of the reasons that I brought this in front of the council's attention was the fact that trying to get full sections of road like Fifth Street or, 6th Avenue, some of those through roads, getting those up to the really solid PCI index, considering the amount of traffic that they carry. And so that's why they were kind of given some priority over other sections that might also need to be addressed. Clearly, if you look at the pavement condition index report, you can see that there's a lot of sections of road that really should be addressed. But, it's what order do you take those in? And that's, where the council has to make the decision on where they want to go with this. But I guess that was my thinking on including this section and then another section on 6th Avenue North up near the fairgrounds that experienced significant popping and cracking over the winter. So that's section 14. That one roughly $55,000 to get those 2 blocks. The reason that is pretty high is because you have sidewalk on those blocks, so you have to do the sidewalks. One benefit, they are very heavily used sidewalks, the 6th Avenue North, going down to the old football field and up and down 6th Avenue North is pretty well traveled, the same way that the traffic moves through there. The next section was just additional patching for the city. These are just all the random sections that we do every year. All the water main breaks, any street work. And so just having those catch those on this project and get them completed, considering Blacktop is giving us, very competitive prices through the project. And then lastly, 6th Avenue North next to the rat hole, patching that middle travel portion to try and address the severe deterioration of that section. We've talked a lot about this. Obviously, it has the water issues, the water seeping under there. We've talked about $230,000 projects, and we've talked about, expanding the road. But, this solution would cost a little over $8,000 and will give us a decent period of, a travelable, a passable street.
Yeah,
Whereas
the
right
travel
now-
section.
Yeah. Whereas
Addressing
right now it's
the
pretty-
failed area of travel
Yeah.
section is what we're looking at here. We're not addressing the water issue or anything like that, but we'll beef up the area of the travel section where it is severely deteriorated at this time.
Yeah, and it's a good thick cross section. I mean, you're
Yep.
putting in a
We're
strong
putting in
section of road.
Yep, and improving the sub drainage on it too by the extra rock underneath it for the sub base underneath the road to allow for more freestyle movement if necessary in the bottom before it will affect the actual cross section of the street. the travel
This
portion.
would go up to the top of the hill then where their blacktop is pretty decent there where. coming corner and
It's,
stuff, or how
it's
long?
not quite that far up the
Okay,
hill
okay.
there. Like I said, it's really, it's pretty much the full width of where you would drive. Where it falls off in the edges is extremely deteriorated. We weren't looking at addressing that area right now because you're just getting into a whole nother scope of a project right now on that. It's really just that traveled portion from just east of the bridge. I would say most of the way up the hill. There's a relatively definitive line where it really starts to come back to where the street is probably carrying as it was originally
Yeah.
built and designed
And then, let's see,
So if we do those 5 projects, we're looking roughly about $250,000.
for. About 180 to 190 in construction costs on it. There's some of the contingencies, we're pretty sure on, like I said, we have prices, so we don't have any estimation that needs to be done on those areas. We're sitting pretty solid on those numbers.
And the one thing that's not in there is 15 is not included. And that's the section 15 is after that. Section 15 is that fairground 2 blocks. That is the worst deterioration on all of the lists, and that is an actual patching and mill and overlay. That just due to the state of that road, you've got alligatoring and that asphalt popping out throughout the road, and so there's a fair amount of work.
Yeah, we didn't, I guess we didn't get in far enough in the work session. That one, the edges are extremely deteriorated. The travel ways, most of it is carrying pretty well through it, but you got some major patches that are now actually deteriorating and failing faster than the actual road portion. So, utilizing the total patch on that area, that's what really gets the PCI down. Most of it's okay, but in order to get that to actually function properly, we'd recommend at least a mill and overlay, a patch and then mill and overlay on that road. One, you got some kind of extreme and flat cross sections to help improve the cross sectional on the road for the drainage off of it, and just for the rideability of the surface there, for the amount of deterioration in the existing patching that is evident at this time.
2 blocks.
2 blocks.
Yeah.
So it's 100,000 more to reconstruct the road, to tear it out and then put it in.
Yeah,
It's just a
that,
mill and
yep,
overlay.
that's putting down a, yep, we're, on this other one here, we're doing a nominal 3-inch mill on it. So about 2 inches in the center, 4 inches on that crown, and then, so it's about a nominal 3. And then we're putting 2 inches back in there to help correct the cross section through that. The other one would be the full mill and overlay, and then essentially mill out full depth, and then put the road back at a 6-inch depth through that area.
Give it to me in a yearly terms if you could. If we mill and overlay, is that a 10-year?
I would say that would be
20-year? What-
that would be a 10-year and then seal on it, and then you would have a lifespan on that. The other one, you're looking at, you should probably still seal it in 10 years on it, at least a crack seal. Just go out and do the small crack sealing on it before you need to utilize a chip seal on it. So that's probably 20 years down the road before you would even get into a chip seal on the other one. Doing the mill and overlay, you're going to get reflective cracking coming through there from where the patches were underneath it. It's most likely you might be able to get by in 8 to 12 years with a joint sealing on it, but more than likely in the 10 to 14, you're most likely going to have to hit that, or recommended to hit that again with a chip seal coating on that road. That's your lifespan on that. 6-inch asphalt you're looking at with maintenance, you get a 40, 50-year life cycle with it, with the preventative maintenance in it.
So we gain quite a bit more for $100,000.
You do, yes, you do.
What's that?
Most of that road is carrying quite well. You have a couple areas that are very poor. If those areas were addressed with a mill and overlay, you should get a substantial amount of life out of that road with the existing base that is in there now.
Now, is that something that's on the table with the monies we've got now, or is that something we're just looking at with
I
where
would,
we go?
well, I guess, depending on what you feel about the other projects and whether you want to move forward with those, I think that you should be able to, assuming that everything comes through at, on Fifth Avenue, South, that comes through at a decent price. I think you should be fine to deal with all of these sections, including the reconstruct, because you've got the new road use tax funds, you've got unspent money on the roadway project, and you have budgeted funding in the next fiscal year. And so I think you should be fine. I'd have to crunch them a little bit further, but if you want to move forward with that, then we can, wait till we see what Fifth Avenue South comes back at, and then, choose which sections.
Yeah,
I
this-
more or less just wanted to get these in front of you and try and get some guidance so I can get it to them, so that we can get moving. If there is some sidewalk design that needs to happen, make sure that that's together, get it all together. These are just preliminary numbers to get the consideration of council.
Or would we be better off to take that additional $100,000 and spread it out over more patching areas across the city, rather than isolated at just that 2-block area? I mean, that would be something maybe you and Nick could kind of give us some more
I
input
guess
on
that kind of just comes to the council on,
Yeah.
you know, how you would like to address your maintenance.
Mhm.
There's more than one way to approach it. You can sit and patch and patch and patch, or you can kind of fluctuate your monies and allocate them to sections of road that are highly traveled, that do need it right now. You know, this section of 6, the section 15 that we looked at, is a little different scope than the rest of that roadway maintenance project. And, you know, you're looking at either a reconstruct or a mill and overlay, you know, a substantial mill and overlay with some patching and some curb adjustment if necessary out there. So the scope's a little different than what the current roadway restoration project is at. That's why we kept that out as kind of a separate little section here without including it in that other total for you guys.
And I think that I just think that the way that you have to look at it is, you know, what do you think is the best way to attack it? Because obviously we've got plenty of red sections in town, and you know, from what I heard in my position, what you guys heard in your positions are going to be different things. But when 6 was cracking, I got calls from a lot of the council members. I think Walt called me. I think that, you know, a lot of calls from people just across the community. Well, there's a huge trunk of asphalt. Why don't you guys put cold mix in it? It's like, well, that's actually the 10th time we've put cold mix in that hole. It just blows right out once you get a freeze thaw. And so that's why that section, I put it on the list. You know, whether or not, you know, it's worth it to spend that extra 100. That's really for you guys to decide. I think that both ways is.
Well, in 10 years, if we do it, we're right back where we are now. If we just do the 120,000, the way I see it, if we spend more money on it, then even the next council, they got another 10, 20 years, where they gotta be concerned, well, they can do more roads and stuff.
Can we move ahead with the 5 sections to begin with? At 100
Yeah, on that project.
At approximately $190,000?
Yeah, the 6, 13, 14, the city patching and the 6th
rat
Avenue
hole.
rat hole patching.
And
Yes,
see where 5th Avenue South comes in at,
definitely.
and make a decision at that time and still get that done?
Yeah, I think so. See, that one's a little different scope. I'll talk to Bob at Blacktop, see if we'd be interested in change ordering that in, because that's becoming, you know, you're at new items in there. So I think you're touching the line on whether that should be bid as a separate project or not.
Okay.
The Fifth
Because
Avenue
we don't have
side.
milling in the one right now, and we don't have 2-inch overlay in the current pavement
Right.
restoration project. So the scope of that project is significantly different than what this pavement restoration is. You know, we're really looking at getting your PCI index back up to a manageable number throughout those areas that we've addressed here. And that's what the project summary sheets, those 5 areas really do.
Would we be better off to bid that, or to go ahead and put that in this project, and then if 5th Avenue comes in sky high, do a change order?